Hi everyone, welcome to ST Skills. This is a weekly system design series, and we normally have the deep dive discussion on one of the topics in 1 week and on mock interviews on alternate weeks. So this week it's kind of a deep dive discussion where DP is volunteering to lead the session on discussing the messaging infrastructure. So let's see. So it requires like all your guys participation, so we can learn together. So if you have any questions, you can stay on towards the end and ask me or Asim or DP. Like DP is also one of the organizers and active members, and like she just took a break, so and she's very knowledgeable. Um, so with this, like giving the forum to DP.
Yeah, thanks, Naga. Hi, everyone. So, like Naga talked about, so we'll be talking about messaging app today. It can be any of these. There are, given that all these are messaging apps, there are several commonalities, but there are subtle differences. So what I wanted to do today is, I know in this group we have been running sessions weekly, and we have been covering these different system design questions. So this itself might be covered more than once, and many of you here might already be really up to speed and have a pretty solid idea of how to design these. So the way I'm thinking of today's session is I plan to go over the standard question and from a high level design perspective, but I may not necessarily follow the order. Like when I say order, typically when we talk about a high level design, we talk about capturing requirements or capacity estimation, right? And then we have high level design, and we talk about, consistency, availability, and all that stuff, right? And we revise the design based on that. I wonder if there are, more specific steps to it, like testing your system against the requirements, something like that, right? So in general, whenever you go, any of you here, if you're specifically preparing for interviews, then when you look at online resources, you'll find a template, something like this, right? What you'll see today is, I may shuffle this a little bit here and there, but the goal here is not to capture a full flow of an interview style system design, but more like in general understanding what would a system design of a messaging app look like, and I may reorder stuff here, right? So don't worry. I would say that's not the focus. So let's kind of focus more on the content and not specifically interview flow. So that's one thing. And the other aspect is, as I was going over this application, I learned few things which I found pretty interesting. So I'll be sharing those, but also I have some open questions, right, for which I do not have full-fledged answers. So this is where I would like to turn to the community and see if you all can jump in, right, throughout the session as such, but specifically there are some open questions I have. So that's how I'm structuring today's talk. Yeah, so just wanted to give the context there. So let's start with, I haven't used this tool before, so bear with me on playing with this. Has anyone used this tool before? Okay, seems like not. So let's see, there's no deletion stuff here. How come? This should be, okay, there is. Yeah, so let's talk about the requirements, right? If I were to design any of, in general, a messaging app, we start with like functional requirements, right? And we can have like one-on-one or group messaging, or we can, as a part of message, you can share text, image, video, any of that. What else can we have?
Broadcasting.
Broadcasting would be more like group messaging, I guess. That's what you mean, right?
Acknowledgements or read receipts.
What is it?
Read receipts. I mean, like,
yeah,
it's
read
not
receipts,
like P1,
right? Notification.
not
Yeah.
like a P1. So, but
Right.
Yeah.
But in general, like if I were
Yeah.
to cite the requirements, you can
Yeah.
have these notifications, you can have like the status stuff.
Okay.
So, and like if you look at WhatsApp, for example, you also have this concept of stories or status. So there is a lot, right, that we can design for. But here we try to narrow down, right? So in my minimum viable, version of the product, let's say I want to support, let me even split this one, right? Because this can require few differences in the design. So let's say this is let's start with this one, right? That we have this one in our first version, and let's even split this.
Yeah.
So this would be simple text, right? And this would be can lead to more advanced design. We can keep this, but yeah, so let's start with this one. And once we finish this and the questions I have, it would be good if we even have time to jump on one or two more, right? So these are functional requirements. Now let's talk about non-functional, right? When we say non-functional, basically we are talking about requirements that you want, so for your product to be successful, you want even these to be met in addition to the basic features. So these can be things like latency requirements or the standard like consistency versus availability dilemma, right? You can talk about throughput of the application and so on, right? So these are more like the performance side of things, right? How do you want those? And these are the features. So we have this thing. All right. So let's start with, now usually what I have seen in the online resources or even in the sessions we have, from this step, we move on to capacity estimation, right? But I was hoping if we can start with, the way I like to think about this is capacity estimation is essentially done to get an estimate of the scale, right? If you are designing the system for millions of users and so on. And these systems are like that, right? And we know that designing a system for like 50 users is very different from designing for 1 million users. So having said that, so people, sometimes we jump to capacity estimation. But the other way to look at this is, no matter, like if you look at any of these apps, none of these was, you don't start by million or billions of users. You start with a small scale, and then you try to see how you can adapt the design or make it at least extensible, so that if there is a growth, you can extend it, right? So that's how I like to think about it, that start high level design for a small set of users, right? And then we'll see how to adapt it.
So you may want to add the, how this app is going to be, accessible through web or, mobile apps.
Yeah. So the interface, right? Like, is it going to be a web, mobile, like, what are the interfaces by which people can interact? I think like Snapchat is mainly like just the, app based, but we know like Messenger and WhatsApp are more like web. Is there,
Hi.
can we mute other users? I heard background noise, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So that's that.
Do you also want to add VoIP and video calls?
Can you say it again?
Do you also want to add VoIP in video calls?
Oh, video calls. Yeah, I mean, given
V2,
that,
we can do V2. Yeah. I think,
yeah,
instead of
video
sharing
calls,
the video, like video chats or something.
video chats or something.
Or
Yeah,
group
actually,
video
this can be an interesting discussion if we finish this, because this will be in line with, like, right now we're talking about just texting. This
Yes.
can be interesting to talk. So maybe cue it in for follow on. But yeah. So, and then the other thing is, I think like Messenger, I know they keep the chat history, right, for a longer period of time, versus like Snapchat, where once the message is delivered, then they don't keep it on the server, right? So this can be something to keep in mind, that for Messenger, you keep the chat history for
And
longer period.
I think even WhatsApp also, I don't think they store the messages, right?
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah.
So if you know, that's good. So like WhatsApp and Snapchat, right? Once the message is delivered, then you take it out from the server.
Correct.
The ability for the end user to, post a message, update it or delete it, something like that. The functional requirements, basic.
Yeah. Right. So you're talking about deleting a message. So we talked about like uploading, share or upload. But you're saying something like even delete, right?
Update and delete additional to posting. Yeah.
Can we update a message?
I don't think these will allow. Delete is possible up to 15 minutes.
Delete is possible, yeah.
You mean to say edit the message after posting something like that?
Yeah.
Slack. If you take Slack, you can go back and you can actually
Update it,
sorry,
right.
you can edit.
You can edit a message in
I
like
should have
that.
said edit, not update. Edit.
Yeah.
Able to edit it.
Right. So I think, yeah, if we start, like in general, we can also add contacts. We can, block people and stuff like that. I didn't catch that. Was somebody saying anything? But in general, the point is in here, right? There are a lot of features we see, right?
Yeah.
But if we talk about version 1, if we start with that, then let's say we stick to this one. And I was finding this interesting and in line with what we are talking. But we can take up more features, right? Once we have a standard design, we can say, how can we add, let's say, delete functionality and stuff. But for version 1, let's stay with some foundation here. And then take it from there. Yeah. So, but these are all like fair points, right? And even in interviews, right? I think if we start listing functional beyond a point, I think we'll also know, right? What are the base requirements, and then we'll see. I'm trying to see, is there a way to move this or? Usually we can like slide it, which doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, you can do escape 3 and you can select the text box and move it around.
How did you say it? Can you say it again?
Escape. Then press V.
Escape V. Okay.
Yeah. Now you can select text boxes and move them around. Oh, but I think you wrote everything in one text box, so you can move the only.
Oh, okay. This is working. Yeah, nice. Okay, thanks. So and then press. How do I type again? Okay, cool. Thank you. So yeah, so let's say very simple, right? I want to send a message, and so for me, another thing, I'm kind of sharing some things from my perspective, but again, like I said, feel free to chime in. So one of the things I have seen in system design, when I attend sessions or when I read online, when something is presented to me, it kind of makes sense. But for me to really structure what happened here?
Some ghost user, like we had this problem last week.
Yes.
We don't know who that is. Can you see if some user annotation, I can remove that guy?
Oh, so it's like somebody can do this?
No, it's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
somebody, it's a bot actually.
Ah.
What we can do is like we can disable all the people
From
and
joining, but first that we have to
annotating.
delete. Yeah. First we have to delete. Oh, you're gonna, okay, yeah, we can
Let me
remove the
pause.
annotation.
All right, so let's start with a very simple case, right? You have let's say you have first user and you have, I'm talking about one-on-one messaging here. So yeah, so the basic thing is like, let's say we have a simple, a single app server here. I thought it shows up in the box, but anyways. And this user is sending, this is the sender here, and this is the message. It is intended for this one. This is the receiver, right? Now, one way to do this is, I was thinking I can start by talking about the, I was thinking of focusing first on the send part. So I can think like here, sorry, this thing, how is, if I were to add the text here, I was able to do it in Box, but I don't know why it's not working this time. So
You just double click where you want that text. You should be able to add it.
okay. No, so double click.
Yeah, double click wherever you want to add text.
Right. So this is where I'm double clicking, like in the text box. So I tried this earlier and that seemed to work. I don't know.
You want to try in the center place of the box, or?
Oh, I mean, this is.
Click on that box once and double click.
Yeah, this is very weird. 1 second. Please make this thing.
Yeah, I think you're overlaying your diagrams with your text box. I suggest like moving to the right and start drawing out to the text box to make things easy.
Start at the right.
Yeah, select. Yeah. No, like select all your diagrams, move them to the right.
Yeah. I mean, I can see it shows up here because it's outside the canvas, it seems. Oh no. Will this work? Sorry.
Just a suggestion. I mean, do you mind if you can use other draw.io and just copy the content from here to there? Because we have a long way to go. So
yeah, it's taking unnecessary time. So what are the other
Draw.io.
Draw.io? Okay.
yeah, I think the features that you're looking for might be there in draw.io pretty much.
Okay. I'll stop sharing for a second because I just want to just on server. So I wanted to talk about the send message API here. So if I want to talk about send message here. So I can think of how I want to frame this. It can be sender ID, recipient ID, the text I want to send, or I can have the image. And what else do I need here? Timestamp, right? And similarly, so if I'm focusing right now on sender, I'll stick to this, but otherwise I can similarly define an API for receiver, right? And I'll talk more about how we can think of different APIs based on the model like push versus pull that we are thinking. But yeah, sticking to this, I have the send message. And now one thing I thought while I was thinking about this is, we know that let's start with this, right? So if I have this kind of API and user 1 sends a message here to app server, and let's say user 2 is not online, right? Then I can't just deliver or ping user 2, send any notification there. So, and I want to make sure that this message is persisted, it's not lost. So from that perspective, I was thinking I should also have something like a database here. I should create something like this. So I can persist when I receive a message, I can persist it to a database. Right. So this is a very simple like send protocol, right? And then I was thinking, I was jumping to, okay, I want to handle text and images separately because the sizes can be very different. And the other reason I thought was usually in WhatsApp, when we get a message, right? When the receiver gets a message, you don't get the full image right away until you click on it, right? Then it downloads the image. So so from that perspective, I thought that, okay, the storage for text and image will be different. And also how I deliver it will be different. So I thought there that it would be good if we split this, if I can split my text and image or video, right? Storage. So by that, I mean that when a message comes here, so when a message comes to app server, if it's a text message, then I can just store it in my database, and data model will be another thing in that picture. But if it's an image, then what I possibly want to do is I want to have another, let's say HDFS or some store like that, where I store the actual image. And then I should get, is there a draw thing here? Okay, never mind. So if it's an,
Actually, you need to separate the text box from drawing area, so you can minimize the.
Yeah, you can separate out all these things so that this text you can separate and draw you can keep it separate.
The big text box you can just minimize. Click on that and minimize that. I think.
Which one?
The click on the top left. Yeah, that one you can minimize.
Yes,
So that
yes,
like
yes.
it's not overlapping with the drawing area.
Okay. Yeah, so here I was thinking I can have HDFS, right? Where if it's an image, I first store it here, and then I should get a response from the storage that, okay, this image is persisted here. So something like, this is fun, right? We really need to practice this.
Yeah, actually, you still need to move the drawing, the text area up.
You
Yes,
can
it-
draw it in down. Okay, that will be segregate everything separately.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
move it up, move
by
it up
this,
beyond the, yeah, still move it up.
go down and draw everything, rest of thing.
Like
Don't that
this?
much much.
Yeah. Mhm.
Not that much. No. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, this text box is just up there now. It's just
Mhm.
No, still it will be a great problem for you. So you have to scroll down. Okay, and right vertical bar is there, right?
Mhm.
Okay, you can draw it here now.
Why can't I draw it here?
It is creating conflict with the text box. It's all this block, right? That's why. You maybe click it accidentally somewhere else, so it will be great problem. It is better to keep difference. You see how
It
much.
should work now. It's outside text box area now, so it should work.
Yeah, it's outside text box area, right? That's what I mean. This is my text box. I don't, whether I draw it here or there.
Mhm.
Anyways, I think let's continue, and if I get stuck, we'll see. So yeah, my point was bear with me on this. So user is sending message to app server, and I'm saying that if it's a image or video, then I first upload it to HDFS, and once I get an acknowledgement from there, then I can have another component, right? Something like a thumbnail generator, right? And then my app server can contact this thumbnail generator, and we can get a thumbnail for this image. And we can, like, the thumbnail generator will respond with a URL, and that URL, then we can take it up and we can store it in our database. Does that make sense? Or do you think there is something else we can do here for text, for images or videos?
In my experience, when I worked for the chat applications,
Yeah.
it is to compress it, and there's a service that compresses the image files, and there is a
Okay.
service that transcodes also. Let's say what is transcode is like, let's say you upload any 10 pages of photos. The first photo is only shown to the user. If you click on it, remaining photos will open. Did I make sense? So that will be another service. Two services will run in parallel. Yeah.
I think that will be inside the thumbnail black box, right? So when you say generator, it actually takes the original location.
No, but if we are compressing it, right, then aren't we saying that we are first compressing and then storing it in HDFS?
First we compress and then store.
Yeah, I think WhatsApp does that, like, because it doesn't retain the original quality that we share. So there is a certain standard, like if we upload from 10 MB, I don't think it retains 10 MB size. So it will
Right.
probably compress to 1 MB or
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but my question was, in this flow, right? What I'm thinking is, when I get a image or video, in my flow, I was like just going directly to HDFS to store it. But if we were to compress it before, then this compress service will come before, right?
Correct, exactly.
So first it will hit the compress service, and then I get the compressed, and that maybe that compress, there are a couple of designs that can happen here, right? Maybe I'll get a response from this compress service that file is compressed, but where is it? Like,
No, the WhatsApp kind of handles it in the application itself. Like when you select an image and send it, it pre-compresses, and we don't have to have a separate service just to compress.
It can be just a library.
Okay, okay. So we are saying it may be a compression library or something.
Compression and security both goes in hand. I mean, like parallel functions.
Okay, but in general, as a microservice design, given that their functionality is so different, I wonder if they would be like separate two different microservices who might be running in parallel, or or how?
Yeah, two microservices running in parallel. One takes care of security encryption.
Right, right. Okay. It's just this whole drawing board, which is not very friendly to me. I need to practice, but in general, I hope you all are getting the idea here, right? So rather than sending directly to HDFS, first we'll either, if it's a part of app server itself, that is fine. But ideally, if we are designing, don't you think that having this as a separate one would
as
be
someone
better?
mentioned, it should be in the user section itself, like
The
in the
client
WhatsApp itself.
Client itself.
Yeah, we don't even send over the network.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So this
I mean,
thing
it's in
is
the
kind of on
iOS
the
app itself. Yes.
yeah. Got it. Like on the client side. Yeah, that makes sense. Right. So before even sending it to app server, we are going to do this pre-processing, and then we are going to send this out. Got it. No, this is a good point. Okay.
Even
and
for
then,
web interface, that would be the case.
Sorry.
Even for web interface, that would be the case. The compression will happen on the client side. No, right?
No, I guess it has to. So even browser, we have JavaScript libraries for compression.
Got it. Yeah, right.
And I think from what I was hearing from someone, that WhatsApp, for example, even their mobile interface or web interface, they're just mirrors of each other. It's not like they would be, behaving differently. For example, we are saying about compression.
And like what's the advantage like of doing the client side? I think that's important, right? We can also do it on the server side, but what you're benefiting from there is like you're reducing the network bandwidth.
Yeah, right. If we know eventually we have to store compressed one, then it makes sense to not increase the network traffic. Yeah.
And
so which is kind of like sorry, I was just making one point here. Is the meta point is that which is kind of like a little different from other streaming services, right? Like YouTube, in this case, YouTube and other services, they actually do this compression, encoding, and probably transcoding. That's this process of this reformatting, re-encoding based on the different device type and other things that happens in the background.
Yeah, YouTube is completely different. You can upload a video, and you can tell them what are the resolutions that you want, so that they can create those many things in their server.
Yeah.
But here our aim is to reduce the bandwidth and save some storage space.
Yeah,
that's true. I think it makes reasonable. Yeah. Choice.
Yeah, YouTube. I think YouTube they do on the server side. Client side, there is no logic to like reduce resolution. Server side.
YouTube sometimes takes hours to render one video.
Okay. And the reason YouTube does it on server side, because then they are increasing network traffic, is because they provide this flexibility of different resolutions and all this. Is that right?
Right. They should give the best resolution, right? So whatever you upload, minimum they should store that.
Right.
Okay. And also in terms of actual access patterns, right? It's one upload once but view many times, right? So but whereas in WhatsApp it's one-to-one. Every upload there is one-to-one. So maybe in WhatsApp it makes little more sense to do on the client, but in YouTube, if you assume like there's a lot more reads than writes, then the benefit of doing on the client side is not that great.
So in YouTube, lot more reads than writes. So why is it not good on client side?
I think I think the transcoding process itself is very expensive process. Actually, if you think about it, imagine that in YouTube, people upload like big MBs of data, right? And doing everything on a process, this is really CPU intensive process, transcoding process itself, and compression itself too, actually. And so that's one of the reasons why it's not the best idea to compress everything on the computer, like on the client side, rather do it on a server side, because they have hefty servers doing this processing.
And also, like you said, right, given YouTube like a service, if one video is going to be viewed by millions of users, then they can just store it, do it on their infrastructure and so all these consumers.
Yeah, I think it's just that I think it's a meta point I wanted to make, because I think because this is very important to discuss even in interview as well.
Yeah. No, thank you. This was great.
There is a discussion in the chat about the connection protocol which we are using. Can we discuss on that, or you have any like plan to?
Actually, so I read about it in terms of, when they were talking about how the receiver will, receive message, and I read about how like this WebSockets and, TCP stuff works. So I have limited knowledge on it. We should definitely talk about it, but it's kind of open to the group to add more to that. So, but yeah, maybe we can hold on to that when we get to the receiver side, and then, or I'm wondering now, is this that would apply even to the sender, right? The stuff.
Okay, so before moving to that, like, can we make a decision on this? Like, what do you guys think? Like the trade-offs between client side and doing on the server side. Now that we know both, at least like what I think is like if we want to have some benefits of like the server side, and also client side, like we may have like some places like points of presence or similar to CDNs, but like it'll be the one which I think with respect to Facebook, they have POPs, which I think that may be the place where which is closer to the user, but it's on the servers that they own. So they can run all this transcodings, everything there, and convert to different formats and store it. That's what at least I have in mind.
I have few things to add here, right?
Yeah.
So the compression can happen in both the sides depending on the requirement sides. Like, for example, if people are using low bandwidth connection internet, right, they may need to see a low resolution photo, while people having high bandwidth connection, they may want to see high bandwidth photo. That brings in the requirement of storing both the resolution, right? But what I have seen with WhatsApp, right? What I have seen with WhatsApp is when you upload a bigger photo, I have seen a compression happening on the client side also. It's not like it's only happening on server side. So there may be a one level of compression happening at the client side, and once the photo is uploaded, then maybe a kind of offline transcoder which kicks in and generate multiple resolution of photos made available. And based on the client who is using the photo at the time of rendering, he may ask for different type of photo. Hey, give me a low resolution or a high resolution photo. So this is my understanding, and this is what most generally what even in terms of videos also follow in YouTube and other video uploads.
Yeah.
See, that itself is another feature. Like asking for, see, if you want an high quality image in WhatsApp to be shared, you just share it as a file itself, not as a photo. So that feature, I don't think I've seen it in any application. Like once you, even Instagram, if you take, they don't. It's not guaranteed that you are getting a high resolution photo that you uploaded it.
I think this is something, rather than discussing right what is offered in each of them, as a system design, I'm thinking. As a system design, I'm thinking we can just have this clarified, right? This is a good point that we should ask.
Whether the app supports like low resolution or not, right?
Right. Does the app support like asking
low
for
or
multiple
high?
resolution?
Yeah.
Like it's not about what the real world app supports, but it's more about, okay, what does our design expected to support? And we talked about solutions for both, right? We talked about how we'll handle if users have the flexibility to ask for different resolutions versus a compressed one, a standard, right? So I think to me, that is the major takeaway here. Anything else? But I think this was a really good point. I didn't capture it before. So
one small doubt, can you keep this thumbnail generator at a user level, like client application level, that algorithm?
User level, thumbnail generator. So we are saying at the client level, can be before passing on the image?
Yeah.
No, the reason, one reason I was thinking at the server level is, let's say for whatever, I mean, is there a possibility that when I pass the image, for some reason, if it's not getting uploaded, I want to make sure that it's uploaded to HDFS, and then I generate a thumbnail image. And that second thing is, let's say there are, when we have multiple users, right? Let's say both you and me are trying to send an image. How will we ensure that the thumbnail, like it kind of becomes a problem of distributed, like a unique thumbnail generator, right? I may generate a thumbnail like T1 and you can also generate on your end T1, right? But if I do it at a central place, generating uniqueness, like ensuring uniqueness, wouldn't that be a better idea from those two perspectives?
Generally, thumbnail is the first image what you send, right?
Not the image, yeah, like whatever. Well, I'm not even talking about the case like you said, right? If you click on first, the others will follow. That to me sounds like a version 2. I was just thinking of one image, right? If I send a single image, then I don't want just the image to be delivered, right, to the recipient. I want a thumbnail first. That's how we see it in WhatsApp and stuff, that we see a preview and then when we click on it, the image gets downloaded. So my point was, first of all, I want to make sure that on my server side, the image is actually persisted correctly. Only then I'll generate a thumbnail, right? And other thing was unique thumbnail. Those were my 2 points, but what do others think?
I read that thumbnail generator is on the server side in some books.
Yeah, I mean, that's the rationale I was following, and I cited the 2 reasons I had in my mind. But like there was a question, right? In general, are there any areas where generating a thumbnail on the user side itself would be, has somebody seen that or used
Are
it?
we, I had one question. Are we focusing more on the image sharing in this discussion or one-on-one
No,
chatting?
we were
because we are discussing more in depth.
Yeah, we are
with
kind of
respect to
going
image
depth
sharing,
first
right?
search sort of thing.
Okay.
Like it's kind of discussion the way it's going. But
Because I was
in
thinking, in my view, I was thinking message itself is a kind of
it's a complex
deep concept, complicated subject.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay,
maybe we
okay.
need to fix our discussion topic, right? So
Yeah, I think that's also, yeah, good point actually, because this can whole derail into another area. So let's hold on to this. Let's go back to a simple first one, like the text one. So I'll take, let's not focus on this. So let's say I get a simple text message, then this is a big problem for me, this navigating this stuff. So if I get a simple text message here, one idea is I save it to my, database. And now on the receiver side, right? Let's say if my receiver is not, online right away, but later when the user 2 comes online, then.
But how do you find if user 2 is active or not?
Right. So I think one way I'm thinking is we can have like in the database, right? Depending on the data model I have, if I have a users table where I'm keeping user ID and last active, some status, is that something that I can, monitor that when I'm saving the message, I want to save. Okay, wait a second. So actually. So if I'm designing for something like WhatsApp or Snapchat, then I don't need to save the message once it's delivered, right? So one way is that when the app server gets the message, I can check my database if my recipient ID is active. And if it is active, I can have, maybe I can push that message to user 2 or user 2 can be, if the user 2 is polling the server, right, for the message, that can be another way.
But how do you query for that connection? So in database, you found that he is active. Here, that person is active.
Yeah.
But where is the pipe to push the message?
Right. So that is something I wasn't starting with, right? I was focusing on the sender side of things, but I was talking about that now. Let's say in my database, I find the user is active, then I should have something like either, if I'm having a push model. I almost feel like if somebody can draw this for me, this is so painful.
Yeah, I think can you move down a little bit? I think that you may have more space if you want to.
Yeah, but it's, I think more than space, it's about handling these.
I can help in drawing, but since you are leading the discussion.
Yeah.
If free drawing helps you, probably you can use free drawing.
Yeah. Free drawing.
I'm not sure if this guy supports it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Let's just make this work continue. Otherwise I'll take more
I think
time.
you are still inside that box. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this one here, this canvas.
No, not that. So I think scroll up. I think there was a big box, text box. Are there multiple boxes there? One more functional requirement. The functional requirement.
Yeah.
Click on the functional.
I think that's the only one. Yeah.
That's the only one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyways, coming back to the thing, right? So let's say once I find that, let's say this user sent a message U1 to U2, and then in my data model, I check that U2 is active, right? Then one way is that this app server, is there a notification service I can have that can, ping user 2 that there is a message for that user? Or the other thing is if user 2 keeps polling the app server, like saying get all messages, that can be another way. But before going there, I want to address, like there was a question, right? Am I on the right track there when we say how to detect if the user is active or not? Or there were other ideas too.
Heartbeat signals, like every user will be storing a heartbeat signal, and the timestamp, latest timestamp in is active.
Yeah, like that's what I was thinking of, last active. If I have a timestamp, right, that the user was last active in, let's say, last minute, right?
When you think like you will show online, like if that guy is last, like his last active is within 1 minute time range, or like, is that?
Yeah, that can be, yeah, right. That can be more like granular thing, how we want to, or maybe every 5 seconds if we are, it comes back to that heartbeat monitoring, right? That how frequent we are checking that status.
Yeah, basically, yeah, even for that, like showing online itself, it has to be one service, because which you need to continuously
saying
like
that
is in the app, like there should be some continuous query for the status, right? Periodic.
Right. Yeah.
I have a question. What do we mean by a user is online? Because if they're like apps, right, and the person is logged in, we can always queue the messages to that user, right? And we can always mark those messages unread until the user opens the app. So I'm a little confused about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking of like when the user is online and they see the message, right? Versus like you said, queuing up. But I think to your point, message will still be delivered. It will just be queued up.
Right? Yeah, and we just show those unread notification numbers, right? That, okay, you have some unread. Yeah.
Yeah.
So usually like online means like they have their client is connected to one of the app servers, right? And you can deliver the message right away to their client.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to maintain all those active connections. And I guess and then there has to be some kind of mapping, right? User to which server the user connected, how to route that message.
Right. Yeah. Like this one, I was just thinking of like starting with one app server, but you are right. Like I would definitely have multiple app servers, and there would be like load balancers in front of it, and different users can be connected to different, app servers. But the fair point was that as long as user is connected, right, to a service, then it comes down to we deliver the message. So there might be, even in addition to database, we might need sort of a message queue, right, in front of that, where we'll just queue up messages, and once they are delivered, we can just take them out. We don't even need to store them.
Yeah, my question here is actually my confusion. I don't know how it works. Do we have these queues on the client side somehow, or we always have it on a server side? And if so, that there is like a different queue for every user, like WhatsApp has like a probably 500 million users or something, or maybe more. So do we have a queue for every user?
Let's not get into the status right now because I don't think it's a V1, right? DP,
no, I think Naga. I think Naga, what she's asking, it's not about the status. It's just more about how to receive the messages, right? So if messages at a very basic level, when messages received,
So yeah, I mean, like from my perspective, like there are like two basic models, right? Whether you want to push it or like the client opens app and receives it. So then it's kind of a pull model. So
actually what
so from my understanding, there are two ways. I don't think there is any queue. There are two ways that we use it. One is long polling and another is WebSocket. So basically, the app from client side will have that connection. Either one, either WebSocket or long polling, and there will be a established connection between the app and the server. And whenever server gets a message, it will just keep sending it to the client by that connection. That happens. I think.
Yeah, so that's having always open connection, correct? Through long polling. But the push makes sense. Is like only when a user is not online, right?
Yeah, so push happens by a WebSocket. So basically, WebSocket allows the bi-directional conversation. So anytime a server gets a message from user 1, it will immediately send it to user 2 because there is a WebSocket connection between them.
Right. I mean, my point is, if there's a connection open, right, a WebSocket or long polling connection, anyway, I mean, push is always available. That's regular, like a bidirectional communication, correct? There's nothing special about it. But if user client disconnects, right, goes offline. So at that point, if there are enough, you want to communicate like to user about now new messages, then you may have to use some kind of, a device specific push mechanism, like, the APN for iOS or the Firebase for Androids, they use that kind of mechanisms.
No, but those are simply like like to give you a very short-lived kind of message, right? APNS and all. If you want to have a user be able to read messages when the user logs back, it's like, for example, today I say sign me out of WhatsApp, right? I want to go just off the radar for a week. So when I come back on, I still should be able to see all the messages that people sent me, and APNS will not do it.
That's correct. That's correct. It is only just say they have some messages client, they have some messages Android. You want to go and connect and read those messages. APN or Fiber just for notification.
Yeah. So
how will so coming to that earlier question, right? So let's say I sign out. When I sign back in, is it something that I will connect to? So I'll connect to WhatsApp, right? When I sign in, and will it send me, like, if I say get all messages, right? Since the last time I was logged in, won't that fetch all the messages?
Yeah, it should do. It should do. When you connect,
yeah, you can do. And like in this particular example, I don't think WebSockets is right, because I feel like WebSockets is where you have real-time conversation, but like WhatsApp, it's kind of more, though you can do a real time, but like you don't need to use WebSockets always, because it's like a, you have a dedicated line between them, right? Like, and it's expensive to maintain for all users.
Yeah, from what I read about WebSockets, that my knowledge of this networking stuff is really, I haven't worked on this, but from what I read, isn't it that it uses like TCP, and which has like a certain connection, like 16 bits for the ports that it can connect to, and 16 bits means about like 60,000 something ports, right? That it can keep open. So that there is a limitation there, right? If we are talking about millions of users, just having 60,000 open ports won't be enough. And that's where we need multiple app servers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like WhatsApp, these messages always have users, clients connected to one of the servers. You always have the connection with using WebSocket or some other custom TCP protocol.
Yeah. So what we are saying here is basically this thing will be more like a bunch of app servers, right?
Right.
So this will be more like app servers basically. And you will connect to one of them and you will have a load balancer in front of it, which will tell you which one you're connected to. And I am so scared to change this stuff.
Yeah, just DP, can you do me a favor? So
Yeah.
let me pause the recording for it.
Okay. So I was thinking, let's first make sure that the sender part is good. So if we are focusing on text messaging, so we said sender sends a text message and it goes to one of the app servers. And in the message, we have things like, sender receiver ID. And from that, if we are talking about app like which do not save the message once it's delivered, then do we need to make a trip to database? Like, is there something like a transient, like can we have sort of a message queue or something where we store messages, and then if user 2 gets it, then do we need to store it in database?
We need to, right? Because
has to comply with the systems, right?
Yeah.
For whatever the reason, whatever the purpose, I think data has to be always
Durable,
data
right?
should be always persisted, at least for some years.
Yeah.
You should have a mechanism for cleaning up later, like based on whatever the default timeline, like how long ever it's
right. And also if there is any system issue, right? If the queue gets lost, right? Like messages can get lost there. So, okay. So then it should be fine. Then we don't even need queue per se. We can just have save it to database and then the receiver. Yeah, so this kind of makes sense to me. Is there something else that we are missing here?
So you should ideally, so to whom you are sending, where are you storing that information?
Right, so that is in my database, right? So in my database, I'm not just storing text, right? Okay, here is the thing, right? The way I'm thinking of these images is when you model this database, I'm modeling a database system which can host multiple databases, right? It's like one node, which is having my, users table and stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm not, so it depends how we are, I think, representing. Either way, it's fine as long as we clarify. But basically, I'm saying I will have a data model with users table or messages table.
Okay, let's type all the tables that you have in.
So let's say users table would be user ID, username, and last active.
Is there a username like the?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. User ID is good. Yeah.
Display name, or like it may also have a picture, but we can.
Yeah, all that is just metadata, right? It doesn't really affect our design per se.
So the next one is actually the key one is messages.
Yeah, so this would have sender ID, recipient ID.
So if you're sending for one person, it's like one. Like for group messages, like you may also have the group IDs that you're forwarding.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. We don't want to have the same, the data map for all, right? Even we don't need that you use the display name picture in the message, right? We can just have the sender ID, recipient ID, and the message, or maybe the time.
Yeah. Right. I think that's what we have, right?
But looks like we are, yeah.
No, that's just in the message table. I'm just keeping track of my IDs. I'm not keeping track of any display name. That's just like additional metadata, I think.
Okay.
So if
message is a message ID, right? I mean,
yeah,
we are
so
storing something in a.
Yeah, this is what I was coming to, that if we are sticking to, let's say, text messages, I think we should have message text and message ID both, right? Because
no,
message ID, yeah.
But you're storing into HDFS.
No,
And the message would be the.
No, HDFS, I was thinking only for images or videos. But if I'm just having standard text, then I can possibly store it in my database. I mean, I was just segregating HDFS for this image and videos. So I was thinking of having a let's not mix, let's keep message text only, right, Naga? Like we want to complete the design for that. So we have,
okay.
So we want to have message ID. So, and the reason I'm thinking of message ID is that, let's say, yeah, like if I want to figure out duplicate messages, right? If there is something retries happening, I don't want that message to be delivered twice. I want some way for the server to know that, you know, this is a duplicate message.
Why do we need this type?
We don't need type right now here if we are only dealing with text messages, right? But if we are dealing with, let's say, images and videos, then we may think of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had one question. If I am sending a message to another person, A sends to B, let's take A sends to B. Are we supposed to store this message for both A and B against A and B, so that when I see a chat window with person B, I would see my message as well as B's message, and as well as when B sees his message, screen, should also see his and the other person's. So how are we tackling that?
Actually, it should be. There, I think the user table is perfectly fine with all the user IDs and all the metadata related to user. The messages is a many-to-many table that actually gives the chat conversations. So maybe instead of messages, we can say a chat conversation. Chat conversation will have the one user, two users, three users, however many, and there will be message text. So they all are participants into one particular chat conversation, right? So data does not have to be stored multiple times with different users, but it's in a single common repository table.
No, but aren't you talking about the group chat scenario then?
It could be group or it could be one-to-one, one-to-one between two persons. There will be a message, the chat conversation, say, I start a chat conversation, which is one, and the participants are myself and like my target user.
Yeah.
And the chat message.
No, but like there is no, I mean, like this is like a never ending, right? Like we will always converse, like as long as we are in a group or like I'm messaging to you, like it's like only one, like you're not going to have like a multiple conversation. Like it's like the history of messages that you will have, right?
In that case, we have chat ID, something like that. So it pulls all the history from the chat. So whatever, if you query like from this chat ID.
So let's say we are in a group and we are messaging each other on the group. So as long as I know the group ID, all the messages associated to that group ID, we can pull it, right? So let's see.
Can we keep the group conversation a little separate? Because to me, the question that was raised was even fundamental to one-on-one chat, right? Like I was thinking, there was this question, right? If I send a message, hello, to you, and you send the hello back, then there are basically, we're talking about two messages here, right? One is the sender is sending and then receiver is responding back. So
I was thinking of having a kind of conversation ID. I don't know what you call it. Like if A and B are conversing.
Yeah.
So we'll have one ID, converse ID, and you can put all messages there. And for that pair, for the pair of conversation, you always refer that one particular ID.
Yeah.
Like if A score B, if A is one user, B is another user. A underscore B is the first ID, and you always have timestamp attached to it. Underscore B underscore some kind of timestamp, so that you always see the messages clustered for that particular user, and they're all in ordered kind of fashion so that you can always query faster.
Okay,
Like
you are almost trying to give the solution here. So
no, it's just my thought actually.
Basically, chat ID or something.
So Nagas, for your point, hey, I start a conversation with you, and that could be ever going, right? No, there is no end for that, right? So
yeah, that's what I mean. The moment when I open my WhatsApp, what I'm going to see, like if I open your name, I see all the charts that I did in the past as I move up. So in the first attempt, I only need to pull the last 10 messages or like whatever your screen is supported, like 5 messages or so.
So I think the way that I understand is this chat system. When first time I try to ping you on the chat, my user ID will be hashed together with your user ID. So there will be one unique ID generated for one-on-one conversation between you and me. That is one. And second thing is that there will be a chat conversation ID that represents the timestamp and maybe day and all those things, all the messages. So every time I on my WhatsApp I have 10 people, but if I pick you, again it actually does it goes it goes a combination of my hash ID, your hash ID. Based on the partitions, it always goes to previous messages.
Yeah, that's correct. But when I'm typing the data model, I didn't mean like you guys are all providing the actual solutions, the way we are scaling and how
I think we are getting into the optimization
space. But eventually we have to talk about this at this point of time.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
I
is there
see
any
one thing
other
missing.
data that we want to store? Yeah, I mean, like before we get into the solution.
Yeah,
sorry for
timestamp.
Sorry for jumping in. So is it something? This is like a open discussion, right? So
Yeah. It's all good.
It's not like an interview, I believe, right? So
Open discussion. This is a collaborative discussion, so not
okay.
So what I'm thinking is that this model will also work for images also. It's just that based on the message type, we just, instead of storing message text directly, we store the path of the
URL.
URL.
That's what I meant.
Right.
And then the timestamp is something that I see not there. Maybe
we should have timestamp also,
because that is
that's going to be the key actually.
I
think now, see, based on the interviews, I think the interviewer could actually, based on his comfort level, he could get into anywhere, right? This will be a perfect example, where we are not even getting into the deeper conversation, but he could stop us right in the data model and say, hey, explain me all the models.
Right.
I think this is really serving the purpose. So the second point, one-to-one messages, you really want to have a conversation ID field. Message IDs, what is the current message that we are typing, but conversation ID is always maybe a hashing of one-to-one or one-to group, whatever it is.
The conversation ID makes sense for that access pattern, right? Where I need to fetch all the messages for the user, both the sides. So they are referring to the same conversation ID. So the solution can be even extended for group also, because the conversation ID may be a group ID. Yeah, it's a group ID, right? So in that sense, I think it's
I think it depends, right? How we want to take the discussion. It's like in general for the group IDs, right? One group, one conversation will have, we can think of it as one conversation is having multiple messages, right, in it, or group ID is more about, I think, how many people it is, are part of it and stuff like that, right?
I think if you're having a group, if you're having a conversation ID, the group ID will not make real sense, because you have your group is also a person, right? And then a person is also a person. So you're putting everything under a group called conversation, and that is actually have an ID, right? So I think the group will not make so much sense. Maybe it will have like a metadata or something. But the conversation ID will be the real real player here.
One question, like, does the choice of data store and type of data store that is being used, is that an important constraint?
I think it would be a good thing to discuss, right? So here I just said database. So there can be questions about, like we talked about data model, like this is more like I started with in general relational, right? But, and in my opinion, like if I'm thinking about text messages only, this seems like fair enough. And even for if I want to say, if I want to query it faster and stuff, there are techniques in relational model like denormalization that I can do. But I think the other fact is when we think about scaling aspects, like are there scenarios where NoSQL data stores would perform better in this case? One scenario I thought was in terms of if I want to store like my images, I would not go with storing them in my relational model, but use HDFS. But are there other scenarios that people can think of?
I think the NoSQL, see all the hard data that you are currently designing the data model, a perfect place for them to stay is on the relational, or maybe relational to start with. But as like say however many times we wanted to go into the past more than 7 days ago and see the older messages, right? So can we have a push mechanism from those messages into a backend NoSQL with a consistent hashing on the conversation ID, so that distribution can equally distributed across whatever the nodes that we defined on the NoSQL. So at one layer we are saying that it's a truly a ACID RDBMS.
Yeah.
The other end is historically everything is equally distributed NoSQL database.
But why would you need both? You can have one, right? What's the need of
I think that's a good question. I think say if you say that hey can we leverage NoSQL for everything, maybe can we do that with the always persisting the last 7 days of the data on the cache and serve the user from there, or can we still have this thing for the days worth of data onto the RDBMS system for the easy retrieval and push everything else into the NoSQL backend?
No, and I had a question there, right? This point of SQL relational and non-relational comes often, and the moment we talk about distributed and scaling, I have heard a lot about NoSQL there. But my question is that even if we talk about, okay, we want to bring data from the last 7 days or a month worth of data, I'm sure there are techniques in relational database systems also, right, where you can offload the data to cheap storage and you can, bring it back, or you can even analytics, right? Relational are, you have SQL Server running on, like a cloud these days. So maybe I don't fully understand that why is it that we have to jump to NoSQL? If I see something like graph data, right, then graph data store NoSQL makes sense to me, but I am not convinced, or at least I'm not sure why we have to jump to NoSQL just because it's distributed and we need to scale.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So the choice of that would be based on the data access patterns, right? I mean, what kind of queries you're going to have against the data store. If you have more of where more kind of joins are required, maybe then going to a relational database.
Right? Yeah, NoSQL would be better.
But also, DP, look at the size of the data that you also have, right? So imagine that your conversations are happening, right? And like billions of messages. Very soon it'll be petabytes, right? So your SQL Server could be cloud, like whatever, right? At the end of the day, you're trying to solve the purpose where you're trying to keep it more available, and also at the same time consistent, and also the asset is also taken care of, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a 1:1 ratio between read and write for this particular chart system, right?
Yeah.
And after we pass that relevancy window where I never go back to previous trace of data and and make an edit or make a delete. So all the real-time transactions needs to happen on the RDBMS system. but all the historical can be on the NoSQL. NoSQL ACID properties are very hard to implement, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Question is, I think I heard Twitter still uses MySQL, even though they have internet scale data. But there is a headache of what happens when one node goes down. How will they manage this kind of this consistent hashing kind of thing, right? It does not come out of the box. So you have the headache of managing all this in the world of RDBMS. Usually in MySQL and Postgres, they will not have that solution out of the box. So maybe you need to think about that as well, which you get for free when you go to Cassandra or some kind of NoSQL database.
Yeah, Cassandra would be nice here because it is columnar and also easy to access. But I'm surprised how Twitter is handling with so much of data in MySQL. I need to look up that architecture. But I see the point is definitely NoSQL will be the way for us to go here. But yeah.
Got it.
If there are many joins, then NoSQL or SQL, which one to
No
go?
SQL, right? Because if
if there are more ad hoc queries, if there are more ad hoc queries, basically RDBM is the best choice. But if the access patterns are defined, and then NoSQL with more of
actually,
indexes and
the thought I had was you can always denormalize it. That doesn't matter whether it's a NoSQL or SQL, right? So you can always denormalize the data and even still keep it on RDBMS itself.
No, that's
so
true,
that
actually.
you can avoid joins. If join is a real problem, you can always do that.
That is true. I think
the moment that you denormalize the data, then you are not actually be efficient for the ACID
updates.
Yeah, again, it boils down to the use case, right? Access pattern, right? So do we need ACID property here? Or is it okay to have some kind of eventual consistency?
Even before ACID, right? Even at the basic level, the moment we denormalize the data, right? It is redundant, right? There you have data lying at multiple tables, same data. So there can be even integrity,
And also, if you talk about the denormalization and normalization, right, you're actually getting away from NoSQL architecture, right? So the way that we actually talk about NoSQL is basically, you're trying to keep it as a log table. Like, for example, if you talk about the chatting that you have here, right? So you're keeping it as log. There's no way that you can go back and edit, really.
Yeah,
right?
immutable.
Yeah, this is similar to like an Elasticsearch or some sort of a logging platform that you're trying to store the data, where you can only view the data, right? You can't go back and edit it, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly right. So we have a two-layer system for the storage here. The first layer is to serve the immediate purposes, to support the functionality of the chat system, where I can post, I can add, delete, and make the edits, right? I think that is the layer one. Layer two is I think based on our business requirements, after a certain time, we should be able to push all the data from the layer one to layer two, which is built on the NoSQL database, perfectly serves for the just read-only request.
We only have a get and delete, right? There's get, post, and delete. Those are only three. We'll not have update on this.
No, why can't I update a message?
You can't, right? And WhatsApp.
Edit is update, right?
Yeah, but
in Slack like that you have, but in WhatsApp and Facebook they don't have.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have. Yeah. So you only have get, post, and delete. So all of them are O of one operations, right? And and basically if we have a message ID against it, right? And if we say it is false, like a Boolean, and then the message is basically gone forever, right? And so I think basically
they are soft deletes. They are soft deletes. You're right. Yeah, than the hard deletes.
Yeah.
And also here, when we are saying this, Naga, what you're drawing, even when you're saying when you're trying to deliver message to or user or the recipient is trying to poll the, server, the data, it will poll the app server, right? So maybe we can have something like if we want to scale the read part, can we had read replicas and stuff? And that way the load will be, because right now we are saying the same set of databases are being hit for, uploading and also for downloading.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like that's why I put like another box.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
it's a cluster, not one.
Yeah.
So it's not just two instances, but
right.
Yeah.
DP,
Since
you
we're starting with a small scale, so
you also want to talk about the DB, how you want to like put it. Should this be like a master slave or master master, or should we even like talk about this?
Yeah, that leads to like replication stuff, right? How we are dealing with failures and stuff.
So what do you guys think, like which of the strategies do you think makes sense? So master slave versus master master.
So the way I'm thinking is that for this Naga, this should basically, if you have like just a single node, right, and you have like a write obviously, and then you have other read. This is actually like a read heavy and not write heavy, right? Because when you compare the ratio between the write and reads,
it should be 1-to-1, right? Most of the cases.
Yeah, I mean, like the writes means like even the send messages are happening.
Yeah.
Right? We can't say, but they're not conflicting as such. So as the user can be anywhere, and we are just conversing in a group. Only thing that matters is the order, because if you're in a group setting, you need to maintain the order and the logical ordering. Otherwise,
and these reads are only for catching up, right? Because the actual communication is happening real time. And this is only for catching up. Like, for example, I went offline and I missed some messages and I opened the app, and then the request triggers, right? So get me all messages from the last cursor wherever I missed and give me that messages. So in that sense, I don't know, like, can we still call it as read heavy?
This is definitely read heavy, right? So for example, if you want to go back, let's say you're trying to like message something, right? You do like a messaging, and then you want to like go back and read it. When you compare the ratio, I'm not saying it's an absolute read heavy, but when you compare the ratio with write and reads, I'm thinking that the read would definitely be more like the ratio between the read replicas versus write replicas. If you compare, the read would actually take more compared to write, is what I'm just saying.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
So we can say write happens only once, read can happen multiple times.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's the reason it's read heavy. I mean, like the ratio is more, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, master coming back to the same question, master or master slave?
Master slave is what I'm thinking.
Even in the case of like real-time delivery, we need to store the messages, right? Because the recipient can go offline at any point of time.
No, master slave.
If I understood,
I think these are two different. I think these are two different questions, right? The replication style, master slave, versus the other question we were mentioning, that how the delivery of the message will happen, right? I think those are
master provides the high availability. One master
Is
goes
my
down,
yeah, I think is my
yeah. So
maybe.
when you're talking about availability, like any clusters is fine. Like the moment when you say master, you're actually accepting the rights from other places. In this case, there is no conflict as such, except that like if two different masters accept the same group message, that's where you have to synchronize. So I mean, like that's where it's going to help. Meaning, like if I'm in this region, US region, and if you guys are in India and we are conversing, and if my message goes to the master in the US region, and like
it's a consistency issue we are talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, consistency is not with respect to the updating the same record here. So it's about
not
maintaining
updating,
the order. Yeah. So like in a group, like which message came first? So that's a problem here. So that like the way when somebody pulls a message in that group.
Yeah, right. You don't want the order to be screwed up. Yeah.
So if my understanding, maybe you guys can correct me. So master typically used in multi-data center setup, right?
Yes.
Typically,
Yeah.
That's the use case. So if you have like East and West Coast or kind of APAC kind of setup, you'll have master. Typically, if you are dealing with one data center, master slave should be good enough. Correct me
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I'm wrong.
correct. Like
Yeah.
if we are saying that problem is only US region or India region right now,
Yeah.
one master slave is enough. But if we are saying like across the region, like across the world, then yeah, I mean like there is no problem in going like multi-master. But the only issue there is like in a group conversations, we need to make sure that the master
Casual ordering. Yeah, it's a time ordering, right? How will you keep track of the time?
yeah, because you'll
Yeah,
have
cause
time gaps,
cause
so you need to maintain the time clock synchronization. So
yeah, I think they call this causal consistency or something.
causality. Yeah,
Yeah,
causality,
causality.
but causality based on relate. I mean, there should be some relation between the messages to maintain the causality, right? Is that has to be somewhere in the data model? We have to take care of that.
Like the sequence ID or something like that. I don't know.
Hey, wouldn't timestamp help us there?
Yeah,
We already
conversation
have
ID and
timestamp.
timestamp will help, right?
Yeah,
Within the
so
conversation.
that would help us. Yeah. Even
So
though
then
it's
timestamp is
even though if
timestamp
it
is
is
a key
cross
factor
data
here.
center.
Yeah, you guys are correct. In a logical sense, timestamp should help. But in distributed systems, you know, like time, you cannot even trust time. So you need to have like some servers which monitor time and synchronize periodically. Like if you read the Google spanner.
The vector clocks and whatnot. Yeah.
But this timestamp is the event timestamp, right?
Yeah,
so
it's from the client side.
When the user sent the message. So if we have that,
yeah, that's
so why
right.
do we need to even synchronize?
Yeah, that's what like Prashant, the problem comes like when we are almost like when you're in a group conversation, like messages are so close to each other. So I'm typing something, you're typing in India, like both at the same time. And like if the server in India, which is accepting the message, is somehow like behind the actual time by like few milliseconds. And if the server which is accepting the message in US is little forward by certain seconds, like this obviously happen in distributed systems. So that's where this reordering will happen if you don't periodically synchronize. So if you,
but I was assuming got your point, Naga. So but what I'm saying is this timestamp is client side event timestamp.
Yeah.
So client side timestamp. So that can't be like tampered by network latency or any of the problems within.
Yeah.
So if the application can annotate with a timestamp for a message and transmit that, so that will just go as is, right?
But if you just trust the time of the client, I can just change my phone date to 2 days back. And
because the application,
if I'm wrong, Naga, Epoch is global, right?
Oh yeah, that's correct. That makes
but also
sense.
I think when we send the value, we'll also be sending it in the UTC, right? So just
we should always use UTC.
We can use epoch time, right? It's global. It's same for any geographical location, I guess.
Epoch is basically
it's just a format. Yeah.
So I would like to say something here, like why are you sending time from client side? Shouldn't server time be respected always?
To know the ordering.
I think
no, so that's what,
because you may be one use case I think of is like if you're offline and if you just type something or whatever time that you send that message.
Let's say I have sent 5 messages from my side, but the second message reads server first. To order that, we need a timestamp from the client side.
No. So in that case, what you will do is like you can either you can send the timestamp, but the timestamp which is going to be respected is the server timestamp when it is successful.
So what happens if I'm sending if I have one server in the US and one server in India, and so if the server timestamp is actually taken, right, and and my for some reason my message is not delivered. So are you saying that since I have like a 12 hours like a server difference between the time zone, so should this message be like after 12 hours?
No, we will
okay. So like we discussed 2 things here, right? So we have already 5 messages in the offline, right?
Yes.
Whatever we are on the client side, it is saved in the DB scheduled for when the network comes back. Right. So either first of all, like let's say we want to respect the order. So in that case, what we do is we would either call a batch API. to send all of them at the same time within that order. Like array will be sorted. One, we can do that. Or we can do, like, if we don't have that batching, we can have that subsequent one after the other. Like after one
No,
is
I think there is another problem if we do it on server side, right? That issue of idempotency, right? If let's say there is some issue that happens with the message and message needs to be retried, right? Like the client sent a message and within the network something happened, and let's say behind the scenes there is a retry happening. Now, if we are picking I was thinking of this going back to the message ID, right? Where we uniquely identify message ID and we can use timestamp there. Now, if we generate timestamp on the server side, how would server know that, you know, it's a same message that I'm retrying, because it will get a new timestamp.
So your idempotency key is going to be the user ID and the timestamp from the client?
I'm thinking use like something like IP address of the client and timestamp and the message text, something like that.
I think the timestamp we are saying is not the user sent timestamp, but server total ordering timestamp. Whenever we are talking about multiple databases and replicas, total order has to be defined by the coordinator node so that all the replicas will have same write sequence.
Yeah,
make the state mission.
Yeah.
Right.
Having some zookeeper like to maintain this.
So the total ordering is what we are talking about, not about when the user send the message and the timestamp of that. I think.
And there should be a service that actually has this timestamp and generate the sequence numbers along with that conversation, and assign each message a sequence number. So to have that read consistency.
That will add the latency again, right?
Yeah, I think the latency, but this is a basic functional requirement, right? I may looking for the read consistency or not. So I think maybe once we solve that puzzle, scaling comes definitely later with the performance.
Yeah. I have one other question that here we talked about on the receiver side, when the user, let's say recipient is offline and you connect to WhatsApp and then you send a message to your server saying, get me all the messages since this time, right? That's fine. But now about the case when the sender and receiver both are connected to server and sender sends a message to B, right? A sends a message to B. Now in that case, what does the flow look like? Like the data will be saved in the database and the second user, recipient user, is just getting the message out of polling the app server. Is that how we are thinking about it?
No, so are we not using sockets for this?
Not using, sorry, what is it?
Socket.
Sockets. Oh, WebSocket thing you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. The problem is you have to do the long polling, right? And the long polling is not really good design for this kind of systems. Maybe
Socket is a better choice.
Okay.
Yeah, when we are having WebSockets, I guess, then pooling of connections, checking about what connections has to be.
It's going to be a lot
of real time.
And also server, and since it's bidirectional, right? I think the server itself will just send the message, right?
Right.
Because
it is more real time, even for audio video call. It will be
Got it. That makes sense.
WebSocket, like the connection will maintain as long both the parties are there, or if one party is gone offline, what will be the scenario?
No, I think it's not between users, it is between the server and the user, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, server and the... Okay, got it.
So one data model we are missing is the user to server connection mapping. We have not modeled it.
Yeah, that's an important one.
And that will be required in the flow Dip is asking. Basically, server will receive the message from user one, and now it needs to check what is the mapping user to correspond to which server, and then it will send message to that server user via that server. I think that would be the flow.
I have one question regarding the database that we chose. I think we agreed on master-slave architecture, but considering the scale that even a single region like India would have, wouldn't a peer-to-peer database like Cassandra be better than a master-slave?
I mean, I think
master slave is an architecture, right? Cassandra is just what database you are using in that architecture. Those two, aren't these two very different things?
No. So
Cassandra is no master. Cassandra is not master slave. It has no
it's
master.
not master
If I
slave.
understood.
Yeah, Cassandra is no master. So it is, they don't believe in that.
Masterless. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no single
leaderless.
no, it's not exactly masterless, but maybe sloppy quorum based. So they have defined a group of databases as masters, right?
It's a leaderless where the writes and reads go to multiple devices
It's
at
a
once.
peer-to-peer distributed system where writes go to all the replicated nodes.
The quorum is like orthogonal to master slave,
yeah.
right? There is no master there actually. Quorum,
exactly. It's a
there is no
leader.
master,
Writes
but
can happen at any of the nodes.
Yeah, that means it's multiple masters, right? When we are saying quorum, it's not multiple masters. I mean, anyone can take the write. Out of these,
I mean, the writes are sent to multiple devices, and based on the consistency, we wait for the acknowledgement. So the writes and
any
reads,
node can
more
take
than
the
one server.
responsibility of any node in the cluster can take the responsibility of writes, right? So in that sense, everyone is master or everyone is no master. So I think it belongs to no master or masterless.
So there is no designated list of quorums, is it? Like for writes, list of quorum
That's
designated
dynamic, right?
nodes.
So you configure at least I need 3, right, to be succeeded, but those 3 nodes could be anybody in the cluster, not the designated master.
So the conclusion for the timestamp, whether it's client side or server side, what we decided, like whether we show like client side timestamp or server side timestamp.
I mean, to maintain a total order, always the timestamp should be from the server, I think, not from the client.
So
that's conclusion.
Yeah. So just like we can always, like if you are confused on this one, we can always say that we can use the systems like Zookeeper, which takes care of that headache for you. Like if you are using all that, wherever you are using multiple nodes, like to maintain the coordination, you can use the.
I understand the server side timestamp, but if you are not using event timestamp, how will you make sure, irrespective of whatever technology you are using, how will you make sure the right order? Because that information is lost now, isn't it?
Why it is
No,
lost?
that's where Zookeeper comes, right? Zookeeper defines.
No, but you already lost the event
have,
timestamp,
right?
right? There is no event timestamp. Only the timestamp that you have is server side timestamp. That is not necessarily be equal to event timestamp because of the network delays and any other distributed problems, right? So you have lost. If you're not storing event timestamp, you are losing something, irrespective of whatever technique you
will
use.
come in the message, right? I'm sorry, like event timestamp will append in the message, like this timestamp it is coming.
Yeah, that's what I'm coming to. So it's not like you can't just ignore event timestamp. You need to have it somewhere.
Yeah.
Along with server timestamp, what is you use? What timestamp you use during the time of rendering is up to the algorithms that we decide, right? Which will give us consistency.
Can we discuss more on the creation timestamp? So okay. So before that, let me give a problem statement. So let's say you send 4 messages while you're offline, okay? And after the network comes back, 1, 2, and 4, fourth message succeeds, but the third one doesn't succeed. So maybe it retries again sometime later. So can you tell me how the creation time will come and play in this one?
For this, the same question was asked, and for that, sequence numbers is a solution, but anyone can jump in the discussion.
But you're offline.
Even when you create sequence ID, right? So that is happening on the server side, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So the sequence hasn't happened because you're still offline, right? So which means that like maybe one solution is that you're caching it local, and then when it comes back on, right, the WebSocket that you're talking about will actually send out like your events, and this event, when you actually type that message, will actually have the timestamp no matter what, right? So that is
No, why are you, no, you're not typing, right? It is like when the network comes back, it will just send the pending messages. There is no typing involved.
Yeah, I mean, like the client side, the ordering can be maintained, right? Like whatever,
yes.
like even if it's offline.
Exactly. So you actually can
send
cache
in the
right?
same order. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is that how will the creation timestamp come into picture with this scenario?
So okay, the creation timestamp will be involved because let's say you're offline, right? Let's say you only have like one message, right? So you are now when you actually come back online, so your WebSocket made your connection to your phone. So it's seeing that you have any message open or not, right? And if it's open, it will basically pick that message and go to the server, right? When it goes to the server, it will basically tell the server that the user actually logged in at 12 o'clock night, but there was no internet connection. I spoke to him at 4 o'clock, and this is the timestamp, right? So when you actually look your WhatsApp again, it should show you the 12 o'clock because that is when you actually typed it, although you're offline, right?
No, that's not what happens, right? Like we can check again, but like whenever it is sent, that time is stored. Until then, it will not show any time.
Okay. Yeah. So you are saying that the creation timestamp is not happening at
irrelevant. Yeah, it does not matter. And plus, even if we were to implement that functionality, it would be misleading. Like for example, I sent it at 5 yesterday, but it is received at 12 o'clock for them. So you cannot say that like it was sent at 5 and like order accordingly. Like it does not make sense.
You're talking about the received time, right? I'm talking about the creating time, right?
Yes. So that's what, like we'll have to show that we would have to show that like when it was sent to the that's why we are storing it, right? To show it to someone, to use it somewhere.
Yes,
Otherwise,
we have the two timestamps, right? One is a sent, right? Or one is maybe like create timestamp. One is like the received timestamp. Sorry, or maybe when the server actually received it, right? So when you I think I need to go back and look at how WhatsApp does it. But what I'm understanding is that when you actually type something offline, so WhatsApp actually stores it cache. It caches on your local, and when it makes the web socket connection, right? And that is when it actually polls the message and sends it back. So when it sends it back, it will actually have the time that you actually typed that message, which means the message that you actually created, right?
No. I think no, it will have the server time. Like when it was received, it will show.
Yes.
Till then, it will not show anything.
Maybe we can get back on this, right? Like maybe I think we have good headroom there. Like we understand the context and.
Yes.
So what is the fruitful? I mean, like a general solution for this sequence number doesn't work. So what can we say in this scenario?
No, sequence number is, but sequence number will be generated by the database using some coordination service, Zookeeper or something.
Yeah, if you look into the chart, like someone proposed, I don't know his name, but like the client ID plus a sequence number for each client. So each client can have their own sequence stored in the server, or like maybe the client maintains. So they will continue to increment and send for each message.
To take care of the idempotency, Naga? Or
even
ordering also.
Okay.
So why
I have a question. Sorry. So my question is, let's say there are multiple databases and we have kind of a replication of a data. So one database is lagging in this replication, then the database which is up to the mark is down. When we go and fetch into the replication which has a lot of lag, it doesn't have the old messages, right? So how do we have a user affinity to go, okay, so these are the servers which has the data up to the last time which you have already read, right?
I think there are techniques like sloppy quorum, right, where you ensure that if you have, let's say, 20 servers, right, and out of that you want to make sure that at least X number of server, like there is a formula for it by which you can ensure that at least X number of servers are up to date, and even if others go down, it will ensure
my question is let's say I have read a date, all the messages up to 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Then there is no database which is available where all the 10 o'clock messages are there, because one of the database which is available is only being replicated up to 950 or something. So then I should not go to that database for read, right? Is there any?
No, that's what I think I was hinting at. So maybe if I point you to the exact thing, because what you are suggesting is, what if the user hits a database which is not updated, right? And then I will not get the right information.
Okay, sloppy. So the
sloppy quorum is something which ensures that no matter which server you hit, there has to be a certain number which are updated, and the way it's designed that when the user hits, if those X number are not in sync, then user will not get an update that things are, updated till 10 o'clock. Like there is
that is actually supporting the strong consistency, right?
Yes, right. Yeah, you want consistency there.
The read quorum itself would give you the guarantees, right? Even if one node is not consistent. If other two nodes are having the latest timestamp, then probably you can consider that.
Yeah.
The sloppy quorum is going one step ahead, where all of your servers are down and you do some kind of
read and write. It maintains that. Yeah. Right. I had one other question. I think just in the interest of time, I don't know if we want to take it offline, but maybe next time. But I wanted to also get a sense from the group here about capacity estimation, right? Like I said in the beginning, when I read about it, the numbers make sense, the calculations make sense. But to come up with some metrics, right? When you're given a new problem, you can think of capacity from different point of views. I can think about estimating storage for my application. I can start about thinking about bandwidth. So are all of these equally correct to go about, or is there another way that people follow that, oh, I should first think of this idea, first think of storage, or first think of latency?
Yeah, I think like these are good points. Like, but sometimes
maybe we can take it.
Interviewer will have their opinion, right? So
yeah, not about. I'm not looking for opinion per se. It's not about like subjectivity is different, right? But is there some like objective thing? Maybe there is not, right? Maybe all are equally good. How you want to address it, that's fine.
I would say like all are important, because like in the real world, we need to know how much we are storing, like storage capacity, how many servers you need. That's and to pick up to
but isn't those
what's the use
I heard a question.
Go ahead, Prashant. So
isn't that just to get a sense of what amount of data we are dealing with, but not actually the real storage estimate, right? It's just to get a sense of
no, but even when you say even when you say how much data we are dealing with, right? Eventually, what is it that we are trying to make that calculation for? We are trying to figure out either how many servers we need, right? Or how much data I need to store. And to me, in all these questions, in general, right? I'm not saying like capacity planning is a critical piece there, right? But I feel like usually the way system design questions, at least what I see online, you start with all this capacity estimation calculations. I think it kind of misses the point how important it is. And eventually the last line is, oh, so one node will not do it. I need multiple nodes. I mean, obviously I know that, it's for a big application, I would need multiple nodes. But to me, capacity estimation is a very critical piece that I'm not sure it's communicated that way, at least in the system design. It's also more like a placeholder to me.
Yeah, one more thing, Dippy, that we also have to talk about here is that maybe like have like we should definitely, there is a Kafka that we need somewhere, right? Obviously we are using like a WebSocket and polling and all that. But I'm thinking that, I saw somewhere in the diagram that, we are using like some sort of a message queue. Are we not using a message queue?
Yeah, I was thinking of that earlier, like having a message queue even in front of database, because like if we are having this functionality that, okay, once it's delivered, I don't need to save it. But
So,
again, I think that's another discussion. I wasn't 100% sure about
But the
it. And I think
if you're only relying on the long pooling or like WebSocket, right? How are we handling?
Karthik and DP, like just want to reiterate, like I think we want to continue this discussion at least another time because this is not like a complete design. So we just started discussing, and like the fact that this is a collaborative forum, we won't always get to the completion of the design. Like whatever, I mean, like it's part of the discussion. Like we get to understand each other's thought process and opinions. So if all the group here is interested in continuing this, like a week after next week will be an official mock interview. So a week after that, we can continue.
Or we can even, like, while it's fresh in our minds, right? We can always have Discord discussion.
Yeah, we can continue Discord discussion, but like I think for the folks, like I mean, like it may be better to pick and complete this design, and also maybe pick a V2 feature that's interesting for us, and try to see what options we can come up with.
No, but this was very useful for me. I mean, I think the system design is, first of all, content-wise, there is so much going on here. Each box can be a whole discussion in itself. But even structuring it is a big thing for me. And of course, drawing. I need to practice this drawing here. Yeah, so thanks, everyone.
Just a minute, let me start the record.
Also,